Senator and former vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine reacting to the emails that show Donald Trump Jr. sought damaging information on Hillary Clinton. Now, it was in what was described to him as a Russian-backed effort to help his father's candidacy. Let's bring in David Hoppe, former chief of staff for House Speaker Paul Ryan, and Wendy Osefo, liberal political commentator and professor at Johns Hopkins University. Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, so Dave, let me ask you, dealings with foreign government, that's one thing. Hostile foreign government influencing a U.S. presidential election, kind of another. What do you make of Kaine, though, going as far as calling this possible treason?
Well, that's a little bit of political theater, frankly. If it was a trial balloon, it deflated pretty quickly. If you look, nobody's followed him down that rabbit hole. So I know he was trying to get excited and make things even more tense than they were, but it doesn't seem to have worked very well. Now, these issues will go to Mr. Mueller, and they will go to the Senate Intelligence Committee, and those are the people who should be making the decision, should be looking at him, and should carry this forward. And unless Senator Kaine doesn't have faith in them, I don't know what he's talking about.
Okay, Wendy, let me ask you, because something in the emails that calls attention to intent here, and that is the key word. What was the intent? Rob Goldstone writes in the email that we all saw between he and Donald Trump Jr. The Crown Prosecutor of Russia met with his father, Aras, this morning, and in their meeting offered to provide the Trump campaign with some official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary and her dealings with Russia and would be very useful to your father. Now, in another email, Goldstone writes, and I'm reading, I can also send this info to your father via Rona, but it is ultra sensitive, so I wanted to send it to you first. Rona, by the way, is President Trump's secretary, assistant. Now, if he actually did send this info to President Trump, how would we know via his assistant? And what would that mean if that were to surface?
Well, while this does not rise to the level of treason based on U.S. Code 2381, it's definitely nefarious, and that's something that we can't pivot and we cannot deny. What we know here is this was a meeting with a foreign hostile power, and this meeting is basically done to undermine our democracy, which says that whoever wins the Electoral College, whoever wins, is the president. And what Don Jr. was trying to do here was trying to hedge his bets to ensure that his father wins this election. And that's something that whether you are on the left side or the right side of the aisle, you have to speak up against it, because this goes beyond just the election that we just saw. This is going to creep into the 2018 midterm. So we have to have honest discourse around this and say that this cannot be tolerated.
Dave,
yes, absolutely. Foreign countries cannot be allowed to get involved in our elections, just as we shouldn't get involved in their elections. That should not happen. That is wrong, and that's what once again, I hope that Mr. Mueller, and I believe the Senate Intelligence Committee and the House Intelligence Committee will look at these things. They should not be allowed to happen. They are wrong. I agree completely.
What do you make, Dave, of Donald Trump Jr.'s interview he had with Sean Hannity a couple nights ago? His father, President Trump, praising him for that and his transparency. I want to read the tweet that he tweeted yesterday. My son Donald did a good job last night. He was open, transparent, and innocent. This is the greatest witch hunt in political history. Sad. And then just now you heard him in a joint news conference with the French president basically calling it opposition research, that any politician in their position would have done this because they were gathering information on a political rival. So then I have to ask you, Dave, is this a political witch hunt or an unfortunate situation not properly thought out by Donald Trump Jr.?
I don't know whether it's a political witch hunt. That's the sort of thing that will be sorted out by the two committees and Mr. Mueller. Having said that, it strikes me there's a lot of amateur naivete, and but once again, on the face of it, if foreign countries cannot be allowed to intrude into our process, that cannot be the case. That should not be the case.
Okay, so then, Wendy, is this the smoking gun that proves actual collusion? Do the emails provide evidence of intent by Trump Jr., Paul Manafort, Jared Kushner, that they tried and unsuccessfully executed collusion with Russia?
If we ever had a smoking gun, this would be it. And one thing I want to say here is that while Don Jr. is not an employee of the federal government, I'm glad you brought up the name of Jared Kushner, because he is. And we have to start questioning whether he should still have his security clearance and what does that look like, because it's not looking good. For you to have a conversation with a foreign adversary and say, oh, if that's the case, then I would love it. Well, no, that's not your response. And when the Gore administration was all also given the ability to have information on another. They turned it immediately over to the FBI. That's what you're supposed to do. We do not, as a country, accept any information from a hostile power or from any government for that matter. So we have to, again, be honest about this and talk about what are the optics and what does this look like. And quite frankly, it does not look good.
All right, that's all the time we have. Wendy Osefo, thank you very much, and David Hoppy.
Thank you so much.
Happy to be here.